My name's Sue Perico. I'm currently the president of Contra Costa Taxpayers Association. I want to welcome everybody for coming in and joining us for our lunchtime speaker series. Today, we are privileged to have our county treasurer and tax collector, Russell Watts, with us. He'll be giving us an update on county financial matters. I'll let you know that we do have some other people that are very exciting coming up on our lunchtime speaker series. And so be sure to keep up with our website, our newsletter, our Facebook page, or just give us a call if you want to know what's coming up. Drop us an email. We'll be happy to tell you. So at this time, because I'm sure there's a lot of information coming up here, I'm going to turn it over to our speaker. Thanks very much, Rusty, for coming back and joining us. He's off of a family vacation, came back in time so that he could beat the tax rush. We appreciate your taking the time to talk to us. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Russell Watts, our Contra Costa County Treasurer and Tax Collector.
Thank you, Sue, and it's a privilege to be speaking today. I appreciate the opportunity. I have to say I miss you all in person. I wish we were in better times. When we look back at 2020, let's see, Denise, are you there? Can you put up the slides? I have some slides here to share with you. My expression for the year was just that. Oh, what a year. Can you all see the slides now?
Yeah.
Super. Hopefully we'll never have to repeat another year like this. So much has happened. Next slide, Denise. You can just take a glance here at many of the things that have happened last year on this page. And of course, there are some things left out. There's too many to list. But I imagine, like you, or like me rather, you're probably in a daze to think of all that's happened and how it happened and hope that it never happened again. Of course, what had happened had a big impact on the county and its residents, and we had never thought that we would see the things that had happened. And next slide, Denise. The first of those things were, of course, the shelter in place. Governor Newsom issued the executive order N3320 on March 19th to have us all hunker down and stay at home. And except for a few who are considered essential. And as a Treasury tax collector, I was one of the very few that was lucky to drive on Highway 4 when there were hardly any other cars around during rush hour. It was like a ghost town. It was the most bizarre thing to see and feel as you drove to work, and you felt like you were the only one on the planet. But of course, with that caught our attention, how we were going to address the upcoming second installment of our secure property taxes due April 10th. Just less than a month away. People weren't going to be able to come into town and pay in person and get their receipt in hand. What could we do for them? And of course, we wanted to encourage them to pay on time. And naturally, the thought or concern was whether they'd even be able to do that, because a lot of them were not able to go into work. Some of them began to lose their jobs and not have the money to both subsist and pay their taxes. Next slide, Denise. So, like everywhere else, we had to close our building to the public, and most of our staff remained at home, waiting it out till they got the marching orders to come back at some point. Management staff came in and we started wondering, okay, what can we do to keep our staff working and waiting on the public, servicing the public with their questions and needs. So fortunately, with modern technology, we were able to pull together some laptops and headphones and put it all on VPN and deliver them out to our staff, where they could work at home as if they were virtually in the office. at their desk, waiting on the phones and assisting our taxpayers. That took about a week or two to pull together, but with the help of our Department of Information Technology and with the funding that came through for COVID, we were able to manage to put all this in place very quickly and resume business as usual to some degree. Next page. Business as usual online, of course, that never went down. People were able to go there and look at their tax bills and pay them, and look for Q&As and hopefully find answers to their questions if they had any. We are available on phone during regular office hours, and we didn't notice much of a change in the workflow on the phone, nor in our email service. I imagine people just weren't going to worry about the second installment or how they were going to pay it. That's the impression we had. They were going to sort it out at some point before April 10th. If not, I hope that the governor was going to extend it. There was this thought that maybe the governor might delay the payment of the second installment, like the income tax filing period was delayed. So to address that concern, the California Association of County Treasury Tax Collectors called for an emergency meeting, and we're very concerned about taxpayers not paying their second installment on time. Obviously, the county needed the revenue and could not afford continue to do business if we did not have the revenue coming in on time as planned for in April 10th. So we had drummed up a proposal and submitted to the legislature and governor both to consider. The governor and his staff took that proposal and came up with their own version of it. Next slide there, Denise. And, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one. But we'll include this right now. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that we're able to work remotely from home using the technology, the laptops that I mentioned earlier. Next slide. I got ahead of myself here, folks. Sorry about that. Turned too many pages. Taxes due, April 10th. And then finally, the next slide. And this is where I meant to land on. So after what we had tried to do as an association, persuading the governor to address the April 10th deadline, he came out with this executive order in 6120, which basically suspended certain revenue taxation codes related to late payment penalties up until May 6, 2021. And this applied for specific property owners who, again, to the satisfaction of the Treasury tax collector, demonstrated that they were unable to pay their taxes timely due to COVID or to a government response to COVID. It's not exactly what we had in mind, but we were going to take it. It at least helped us to respond to the public about their concerns, how they would be able to pay. If they were to pay late, would they be charged a penalty, especially in these difficult times. Next slide, Denise. So in this executive order, there were two qualifying types of properties. One had to be owner-occupied residential property, except where there was an impound account, because obviously in this case, the owner's taxes were going to be paid anyway by the mortgage company. The second type property was concerning commercial property, and it had to be owned and operated by taxpayers qualified as small businesses under the Small Business Administration's regulations. And so we put together a form that taxpayers were able to use to request for penalty relief. And if they felt they were going to be late paying their taxes, and we would then process these forms and reply with a approval or denial. Next slide, Denise. In this case, we received only, and I say only when you think about the number of tax bills we issue, only 2,470 requests, and approved basically all of them. 185 were returned because of insufficient documentation, but afterwards, when they resubmitted the request, they were also approved. Next slide, Denise. Do you recall back in spring, going into summer, things started to lighten up and we were starting to come out of our shelters, cottages, homes, and back on the streets. And some of us were returning to work and we thought that we were kind of out of the woods with this COVID. And then unfortunately, things started to turn for the worse again. And cases started to rise and the fear started to settle in. The office decided that we'd go back to closing partially. I say partially because, as you know, we've been in this arrangement now since November last year, where our office is open, but by appointment only. And again, we limited that to just those taxpayers who needed to pay either with cash or multi-tender, meaning cash and checks, or checks and credit cards, or multiple credit cards. And so we began allowing only taxpayers with these under these circumstances to come into the office, and it's been that way since. We were really worried about how December 10th, first installment for this fiscal year would go, but surprisingly, a lot of people seem to accept the situation, and many of them, of course, paid through mail as they've done in the past, and many more paid online, which we were pleased to see, because that's one area we really wanted to grow our businesses, more online service. Next slide, Denise. So just a little background information. This year alone, we've sent out quite a number of bills. You're familiar with these type of taxes we collect for the county. The main four being secured, unsecured, supplemental, and redemption. Redemption being delinquent, secured, and supplemental taxes. And if you add all those numbers up, close to about 420,000, 450,000 bills a year. And then in addition to those, we also collect business license taxes, cannabis taxes, transient occupancy taxes, and so forth down there at the bottom of the list. Next slide, please. And also, as you're familiar, our assessed value for taxable properties has been going up the last 8 years, which is good for the county. It's additional revenue. Next slide. So what does this mean in terms of number of bills and the increased value of properties? That means quite a bit of revenue that we'd have to collect for the county. And fortunately, by the end of the fiscal year 2019-2020, we're able to finish collecting 99.04% of the taxes levied, which is slightly under what we collected the year before, or the few years before that. We were worried that it would be worse because of the COVID situation, but taxpayers really came forth and paid the taxes on time. We didn't really suffer that much in terms of delinquencies or coming short of revenue. So next slide. As you know, we collect tax payments through various means, by mail, most of them. We have a San Francisco PO box that you'll see on your coupon. This basically has the tax bill payment going to our lockbox. Actually, it's located in Fremont, but they drive up and down San Francisco every day, 7 days a week. sometimes 11 times a day, picking up the mail and bringing it back and processing it and depositing it right away. Taxpayers who don't have that coupon on hand, they can get a copy of it from us in the office or from online. And usually in that case, it'll include a Martinez PO box, and we'll have that payment come straight back to the office. Taxpayers can also pay electronically, as I mentioned, online or by phone. This year we did something different with the IVR. Previously, it used to include all 4 types of taxes to pay, but we had found that the majority were secured property taxes. And there were taxpayers who complained about having to go through the menu and finding that and spending too much time on the phone to make their tax payments. So we decided just to eliminate the other 3 taxes and only include the secure taxes. And that seems to have gone really well. And then, of course, people can pay in person. But unfortunately, right now, like I said, we are limiting it to just those who have to pay with cash or multi-tender transactions. Next page. Something new, though, we did. Taxpayers still like to come downtown, park the car wherever they can in Martinez, and walk up to our building, as beautiful as it is, and walk in if they can. Unfortunately, we weren't able to allow them, but we did still try to find a way to accommodate them so they didn't feel like they wasted their time driving all the way down from wherever. So what we've done is we've mounted a exterior payment drop box on our Main Street door entrance, and it's worked out really well. It's available during business hours, and it is under camera surveillance, so we know it's safe, but we lock it otherwise when we're not in the office, so nobody can go in and tamper with the box. But we check it regularly during the day and bring the payments upstairs to process, and then mail out receipts to those who include a return address on the envelope.
We have a question that pops in right to this topic. Since
Okay,
April 10th is a Saturday.
Yeah, good question.
Due date the 12th.
Right. So California law requires that if the usual due date, December 10th or April 10th, falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, then the taxpayer can pay as late as closing of the next business day. So in this case, the 12th. You're right. And for the second installment this year, you'll have up until closing on April 12th, Monday, to pay without penalty. Good question. Next slide. There are other ways we can assist the taxpayers in making payments. Again, I talked about online bill lookup. If you lost your bill, you go online and find it there. The only thing that doesn't include is your name and address, because we want to keep that confidential. While you're online, of course, we hope that you'll even pay online. We have a new third-party vendor, Grant Street, that's providing the service, and they are doing a wonderful job. They have it set up so that when you go through your first time, if you want to create an account with them, so next time you come through, you don't have to pull out your credit card. They'll have it all there for you, and it's of course kept under lock and key and safe, so you don't have to worry about it being stolen or hacked. Again, we have email reminders. We're hoping to see more and more. We've seen some increase in this and also in e-billing services, but we'd like to see more people use this free service. Email reminders is something you can use, say, even for a grandparent or somebody you know in the county that always forgets to pay their taxes. Well, you can include their parcel number if you know it and they're willing to share it in your email service. So we would send you pretty much 2 weeks prior to each delinquent date an email reminding you of those parcel numbers you signed up for, to check them online and see if that they are paid. And of course, if you see grandma hasn't paid her taxes, you can call her up or go over and help her pay those taxes so she doesn't get dinged with a penalty. E-billing, I think we're all familiar with that. We've seen this service in other lines of business. And basically, it's just an email with a link to the online bill to allow you to see the bill there And again, the online bill has everything you would see on paper except for your name and address. We're all familiar with the property tax postponement the state controller's office uses or offers. And of course, there's been some change in the law recently to lower the interest rate and increase the threshold, I guess, for those who could be eligible for using this. Contra Costa County is the second most, I guess, popular county in the state that's using this. We have more users than anybody else except Los Angeles. Online too are the levy and bond telephone numbers. A lot of folks like to track when these bonds are going to fade away off their tax bills. There's numbers there you can call or find out. We also list online exemptions for senior and disabled citizens, specifically partial tax exemptions, which require a timely application before the bills go out. If you want to have a certain levy that might qualify, be exempted off the bill. Again, from Grand Street, we had the tax payment scheduler, and which is a similar product to what we had before with our previous vendor, but this is specifically for secured taxes only. But it allows you to schedule in advance your payment. If you're one who likes to travel or forget to pay your bill by December 10th, you can schedule it and tax or Grand Street will make sure it's paid on time. Then you have online payment history, which may be something useful today for those who are filing their income taxes. And they need to go back and see how much they paid in property taxes. That's available online. The 1% tax allocation, this is something that actually the Audit Controller's Office is hosting, and we just have a link to it, and it's worked out really well for those who have questions about how that 1% is distributed. The change of address form is available as assessor's office form, but we have a lot of folks that contact our office to ask how they can get their address on their tax bill updated. And then finally, we have what we call PTOPS, which is a property tax online payment system. And it's pretty much for those who have multiple bills they want to pay at one time. But with the Grand Street program we have, most people use, it's limited to, I believe, 10. But if you have more than 10 parcels you want to pay in one lump sum, PTOPS is the program we've designed to do that. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we are really trying to get people to do more business online. It seems to be the wave of the future. It's certainly more convenient, it's less costly, it's quicker, and hopefully more and more safe as technology develops. And you'll probably remember from your last year's tax bill, noticing on the first and second coupons, some information was changed. In the case of the first coupon, we were advertising to save time, pay online. And on the back side of that coupon, it lists the reasons why you might want to pay online. Next slide, Denise. And then on the second coupon, we were encouraging people to sign up for e-billing. Again, the obvious benefit to the office is less cost on postage and handling. And for the taxpayer, less chance of losing the bill in the mail. We do often get people who say they never got the bill. In this case, if your email is correct and it doesn't change, you're certainly going to get the bill in electronic form. Next slide. And then other online services are what you see when you go onto your account. I'm curious to know of the group that's here today, how many have actually gone online to even look up the tax bill, if not actually pay your tax bills. Good. I hope you're taking advantage of this. Again, this is available 24/7. It reduces stress if you're ever wondering, where's my tax bill, or what was it 2 or 3 years ago? And if you go into the account, besides seeing your current taxes and viewing the current bill, you can see your tax history. And under tax history, you can actually see or view those bills. It's not just raw data. It'll look just like what you actually handled back then when you first got the bill. There's assessment information and then a property tax map, or property map rather. So if you go into your account and click on that property map, it'll show you how to get to your home in case you lose your way. And then of course, contact information. Next slide. So here we are approaching April 10th, 2021, and second installment secure taxes are due. And somebody already beat me to the punch on this question, but what do we do if the tax date, due date falls on a weekend or holiday? And again, the easy answer, of course, is wait till Monday to pay. You have till closing, and I use that term closing instead of 5 p.m. because even though our office is closed at 5 p.m., you can't get in the doors past then. And actually, technically, right now, we're closing at 4 p.m. because of COVID. You still have the ability to go online or call by phone to pay your taxes. And if you're lucky too, you can mail it in that day, and it'll be counted. You honor the postmark date when payments are mailed in. But our business runs online up until 11:59 Monday night. So if you're one of those last minute persons who like to pay their taxes, you know when, or last second in this case, that you know when you'll have to pay without penalty. But obviously, we encourage you to pay much earlier. Things can happen online, and when they do, of course, we can't help it necessarily, and you run the risk of being dinged a penalty. But next slide. Statutes of interest. You may be aware of some recent changes in the law here. One is on cannabis, and which the state has allowed financial institutions now to take our cannabis tax money and not be at least breaking the law in California. You know about rental payment being deferred. And of course, with the change in the Constitution, home protection for seniors and severely disabled families and victims of wildfire and natural disasters allows for the transfer of ownership from anywhere to anywhere in the state. Of course, California Proposition 19 made that even more clear what that meant and how many more times you can transfer your property or ownership to property in the state. Next slide. Another interest, county treasury pool. Just announce again that the treasury continues to be rated at a AAAF rating by S&P, the highest quality rating we could ever get, and we continue to have that rating since November of 2007. Assets under management now. We've reached a record high of 4.5 billion, and 83% of that is managed in-house. And the weighted yield to maturity, as you can imagine, you can look down at that chart, it's not so high today. We've had a nosedive since COVID broke out, and we expect that to continue at a low into the future. The rumor is probably for at least 2 more years that we'll see low interest earnings for our office. Next slide, please. So that concludes my my presentation. I got a little dry in the mouth here. I should have brought some water. Sorry about that, guys. But be glad to take any questions if you have any.
So far, nobody's posted any, but I would say because of the interference that we get, please use the chat feature, and I'll be able to field your questions and get them straight to Rusty. Or you can raise your hand, which is an option at the bottom there. Okay, Mark Fernwood, you've got a question.
Mute.
You're muted. Mark, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
This year, I used the online payment method for 2 different properties, and I found it to be very, very easy to use. Very pleased.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Eric Wren, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One, when that bill, that N6120, where someone could basically not get paid the penalty. When you guys did that, at the same time, though, you sent notices out to all the lenders of those property owners, and the lenders sent you're going to pay the property tax right now. So the ability to be able to defer that payment last year, it basically came back and got enforced by the lenders to say, hey, you pay up right now. So everyone who took advantage of that got a note from their lender saying, hey, you can't wait, you have to pay right now. So I don't know if that was planned or not. And also I have a second question. Basically, when you talked a little bit about how the tax collection is a business and you need the income, I deal with commercial landlords all the time. When they were told, there's a lot of laws that went or ordinances, so forth, saying that tenants didn't have to pay. That's where the money comes from, to pay the property taxes. So I don't understand why it was waived one way, but not waived for the property owners themselves, why their obligation was still there, but the tenants won. It would be like telling a hotel the people can stay there, keep staying there, but you have to let them stay. So I don't understand 2 things. It was kind of, it didn't give a really good message of trying to help the people.
No, I understand. In that case, of course, it was the Board of Supervisors who had made that decision. Again, what we had provided for all commercial businesses, and again, in the case of those who have apartment buildings, they could simply apply just like any other taxpayer, and they would consider a small business and request for penalty relief. Did you do that, Eric?
Well, I have a lot of clients and so forth, and I've been at the end where we were having tenants getting relief, whether it might be rent relief, rent reduction, deferments, and etc. Not one penny of that was translated over to what we owed in terms of our tax bills. So we still had to keep paying our tax bills, and it kind of got the impression that people thought if you owned property, somehow you had this massive pile of cash to be able to pay when everybody else doesn't. And that, to me, the investors I deal with, some of them are just very, they don't trust the Social Security's being there. They have little investments like this, and yet their income was cut off. They had no rights to take possession back of the property, and the tax bills were still due. It's very frustrating. It's still going on.
I understand. Well, again, I would encourage you, at least if you haven't already, if it's a concern about paying the taxes on time, to submit that request relief form.
But you're going to then still notify the lender then that, when then you tell the lender, hey, they haven't paid, we get a note from the lender, and then the lender says, you got to pay. It doesn't matter what Russell says. It's right. You got to get this done right now. So it kind of totally counteracts what you've offered.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. I have a couple other questions that have been rolling in. How well do tax revenues cover county expenses? What is the projection on county pension payments? Are we solvent?
All right, I'm looking at Bob and seeing him smile again, and I would defer to him to explain just how much the tax revenues cover county expenses. But as far as the pension is concerned, again, the county, fortunately, I should say, Contra Costa County Employees Retirement Association is actually faring better than most other pensions of the in the state. We are more than 90% funded today. During the COVID, our CEO managed to continue business as usual. Where there was no real downtime where our retirees did not receive a check, and her staff continue to wait on retirees and members alike with any other questions they had. So hope I answer your question with that.
Bob Campbell. Okay. We're fortunate to have Bob Campbell, our county auditor, online here. And Bob, did you want to weigh in on that? And I if you'd rather not, we'll forgive you. But if you would like to weigh in shortly, please unmute yourself and lend a hand.
Yeah, I can look up the actual number here in a little bit, but actual property tax, although it's our largest source of general purpose revenues, the largest percentage of actual revenues to the county come from state or federal aid. And, that's why a lot of our programs are directed in those areas, because we don't have a lot of discretion with what we do with our general purpose revenue. We have a significant amount of money that comes in that's designated. I'm going to say it's less than 50%. And like I said, I'll have to look up the actual number for that. But the general purpose revenues that property tax makes up the bulk of is, slated for things like Rusty's office, my office, assessor's office, those required things. And then once we get past that, there's very little discretion that the board has with that. So they have to pick and choose programs beyond that. So if you give me a couple minutes, I'll look it up. And if I find it, I'll share the exact percentage or the estimated percentage coming into our next budget year.
Okay, just raise your hand or chime in when you're ready. I have another question for you, Rusty. What does the Treasury pool cover? Where does the revenue come in and how is it used? And is there a pool for each county or is it at the state level?
All right, so in Contra Costa County, we have one county treasury pool. Okay, and in that pool, besides the county's portion, we have the school districts, 19 school districts and community college, who are required to deposit with the county. And we have approximately 20 other voluntary districts that also deposit with the county. And so that's what makes up pretty much the treasury pool. Again, the investment portion of it is the surplus operating funds and or bond proceeds that are included in the pool. The pool is managed at a very short duration. It's very liquid because of the times we're in. Hence the reason too, in part, why the lower rate. You'll see if you were to compare county to county, every county treasurer may run their pool slightly different. Some go out a little bit longer on the curve and are able to. Others are just as short, if not shorter than we are in terms of time. Economy, of course, is one other thing you look at in terms of deciding the duration. And lately, as you've seen with the Fed rate as low as has been, and as things have been pretty unsettled, we've determined to just keep things short for now. But did I answer the question there? Or is there more that you'd like to know?
We'll know in a minute. I couldn't even.
Is there anything else you'd like to know about the pool?
Okay, we have another question about pension obligation bonds. And the question is, where does the county stand financially on pension obligation bonds? If I recall correctly, one set of those gets paid off by next year. and I believe he's right. Are new pension obligation bonds contemplated for issuance, or is it expected that they can now be avoided?
All right, as you mentioned, Sue, the last of the series of pension obligation bonds will be paid off next year. And there is no contemplation about issuing any new POBs in the future. Where we are currently, the unfunded actuarial accrued liability for the county is fairly low. It's just a little over $500,000. If you recall, not too far past, it was over $1 billion, but we've done well as a pension fund to have earned and reduce our unfunded liability over time. So there is no talk, or has not been any talk among or in the county of issuing any new POBs. We don't see the need for it.
Okay, so by paying off those pension obligation bonds, not sure why I'm getting feedback here. That means that we now have money that's coming in from our regular property taxes that will be unallocated, so that the county will have a larger cash flow. Is that correct?
I can't speak for the county in that respect. I do believe that they have already planned for those funds that are freed up to go towards other items. I'm pretty sure that that's the case, but specifically, I couldn't tell you what those are right now. But that would probably be an opportunity for our new CAO, Monica Mino, to address in the future.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to book a date with her soon. And I have one last question, and then we'll get Bob Campbell's input on his topic. Do we keep a reserve to handle timing issues, like the ability to delay sending in property taxes? And what percentage of the annual budget is that reserve?
All right, the county does have a reserve policy, has had it for a good number of years now. Bob, again, I'll defer to our auditor controller on that question. It's at least 5%. But has it been contemplated for cases like delay in property tax payments? I don't think that's ever been brought up as a consideration, and hopefully we wouldn't have to run into it, but it is there as a contingency in the event hard times.
Okay.
Yeah, currently we're above stated reserve policy minimums. It is there in case we do have a significant downturn and we need to draw on those reserves. So it's stated in that policy how that has to be done. It's not specific to property taxes, but it is allowable if there is a revenue impact and we need to draw on it. It tells us what we need to do, how we need to do that in that aspect. So.
Until either one of you do, we have a follow-up on that. Any thought on good return times to increase that reserve or spending it?
So
Peter, if you want to step into that one.
I will, because, who cares? So here on the POBs that we talked about, the county does have I believe it's an ordinance out there right now that commits us to use that to pay down our pension, if I recall. We switched that from our OPEB, which we have done significant progress on, and we built our other post-employment benefit trust fund up, not as much as where it needs to be, but we have made significant progress on that. And I think the plan now is to redirect those pension obligation bonds back over towards the retirement side, although we are quite in quite a good position with Cicera. Are we close to 90% currently funded on that, Rusty?
On the pension, yes.
Yeah.
Over 90%.
Woo-hoo, good job, guys.
So you can see that overall, we're pretty well positioned on that. However, what we don't want to do is become complacent, because all it takes is a couple of years of market downturn to really change that unfunded liability out there. So I'm hoping that what we do is, much like we did with the OPEB, use those funds in a trust where we can set aside to make future retirement payments. And there are some options out there for us to do that. And, that's been part of the discussion. That will be a board decision down the road. But right now, it is committed to hold those pension obligation bond dollars that we'll save in the future, hold those to offset some of our future retirement. That's the general plan as it relates to that. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you both on that. Okay, it is about time for us to wrap up. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in. This will be available for replay on the cocotax.org website and on YouTube shortly after that. And I want to thank our special guest, Rusty Watts, and our special cameo appearances by Bob Campbell, our county treasurer, tax collector, and county auditor, Contra Costa. Deb Allen has her hand raised. If you want to unmute real quick, Deb, you can have about 30 seconds.
Thanks. Hey, I just want to mention, I am now the chair of the audit committee for the Bay Area Rapid Transit BART, and we have passed a charter that includes adding 2 members to that committee from the outside, and I am actively looking for 2 people from the CPA or other audit finance community to contact me regarding 2 open spots on that committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. All right, everybody. Until we meet again, if you're not a member of Coco Tax, please consider joining. You should be. Please help us in supporting our mission of good government at affordable cost. And until we see you all again, I wish you good happiness, good health, and be well informed, please. Bye-bye.
Before you go,
Yes.
I was just going to ask, with the loosening up of restrictions, do you see the opportunity to meet in person, assuming we can have a space large enough to abide by whatever rules we may still be under as that approaches?
As soon as humanly possible. You give me a date, I'll give you a place. And that's a promise from me to you and everyone else.
Okay.
I miss everybody, and I'm sure it's as wonderful as this is, gives us great opportunities. It's not the same as being able to talk person to person.
That's
Take
correct.
what we can get, and as soon as we can, we'll be back to doing business face to face. But we're not going to keep up. We're not going to stop doing the lunchtime videos. So hopefully this will help our people in the working sector who cannot be present. So I expect we're going to keep these up in the future. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Sue. Good to see you all.